Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Casa-Todd. I am, I was about to say the literacy consultant for the York Catholic District School Board, but that is not my role anymore. I will be the teacher librarian come September at Cardinal Carter in York Catholic. Thank you so much for those of you joining. Justin, I have to give you a shout out because I learned, Justin just joined us next door, and I learned how to use Blab this morning because you helped me. So thank you so much. And I want to just have our panelists introduce themselves. So Fran, why don't we start with you?
Hi there, I'm Fran Siracusa, and I am online from Clearwater, Florida in the US, and I'm happy to discuss lots of benefits of connecting globally with interactive tools like Blab here, and I'm excited to join Andrew and Jennifer today.
Thank you, and thanks so much for joining us from beautiful Clearwater, Florida, where I'm sure you have a million other beautiful things to do. Awesome. And Andrew.
Hi there, I'm Andrew Campbell. I am the grade 5 teacher at a school in Brantford, Ontario. I'm also a writer about education and technology, and I'm very interested to try and learn about Blab and see what the potential of it is.
Thank you. And so just to talk about, so Fran and I met face to face and had this kindred relationship when it comes to global education and connecting kids. And Andrew is my conscience, who sits on the side of my shoulder when I'm looking at something and I think, okay, what are the privacy issues here? So I'm really looking forward to having you discuss this because I think you lend a great, such a diverse but great perspective to this conversation. So thank you so much for joining us. So I just want to go through logistics for those of you that have never been on Blab before, and that was us, all three of us before today. So talk about risk taking. But you do need a Twitter or a Facebook account, which I'm sure you've already recognized. And also, you'll notice that there is a blank seat. I don't know if that's the correct way to say it, but there is an empty spot. And so what this platform allows for is for people to jump in and out in order to contribute to the conversation. So if you are interested in expressing an opinion, talking to us, whatever the case may be, piping in with your 2 cents, your 5 cents, whatever, just double click on that and I will, as the host of the Blab, I can give you rights to speak. So we'd love for some of you to join us tonight as the conversation turns around. In terms of the format, rather than having a series of questions, which are very typical of like a tweet and talk or something, what I've decided to do is use a protocol called fears, cheers, and unclears. I was telling both Fran and Andrew earlier that I don't really remember where that came from, but I know that they use it sometimes in the Ministry of Ed sessions, and I use it sometimes to frame a keynote or whatever the case may be. But so we're going to start with fears, and fears is a bit of an intense word, but it's more about what are things that teachers maybe need to be aware of if they're using this, maybe students need to be aware of if they're using this, things that we just kind of need to know as educators. Cheers, what are some of the things that we really like about this? What are some ideas that we have for implementation, either on a global level or, junior? I know you both teach junior. I might bring the high school lens, but so what are the things that this platform does really, really well that we're excited about? And finally, the unclears. I don't think that in 25 minutes we're going to be able to know this really, really well. What are some of the questions that we still have? So we'll use that format. And as I said, if you're just joining us, we'd love to have you jump in at any time. So just click on that seat. So why don't we start with the fears or things that we think teachers might need to know about? Either one of you have something right off the bat that you're thinking about?
I know right off the bat, and you kind of mentioned it earlier too, is the whole, as with anything, the whole realm of privacy and who can access this and how teachers need to make sure that you're always aware of how students are interacting and, definitely there are different protocols per school on whose face and whose voice and who, everything that can be shown. But I was just, if we want to talk about that, I have some suggestions on how to maybe deal with that issue. And then just talking about digital citizenship. That's what first came to my mind.
Okay. Thanks. Do you want to jump in, Andrew, and then maybe we can explore further?
Yeah, I mean, I think that anytime that you're dealing with live broadcasting, live streaming in a school, there's a whole other level of student privacy that we have to be aware of. I do a lot of recorded video in my classroom, and one of the things that I never have to worry about is I never have to worry about somebody accidentally walking through the background who doesn't have a privacy clearance. I never have to worry about somebody turning the camera the wrong way and catching a piece of contextual information that gives away our location. I can control it a lot more. And one of the things that we've got to be aware of with things like Blab or Periscope or Facebook Live is just the fact that there's no takebacks on it. It's live and it's out there right away and it's never coming back. And that's a whole other level of risk that we need to be aware of.
Certainly, I think one of the things I noticed when I was creating the Blab was that you could actually create an unlisted Blab as well. If you don't have parental consent to use live streaming apps in your classroom. So I know when I looked at that, I thought, oh, okay, at least there's that. And then, Fran, you said that you had a couple of things that suggestions you were thinking about as well.
Well, also, possibly, if I were to do this, I would probably have it under the account of the teacher, so that she would have complete control over how it gets published or not published. And then in the past, what we've done too, kind of like what you all said, for the couple students that might not have, license to be seen, making sure that they are elsewhere, not in the view of the camera, but also keep in mind you never want them to feel like they're the odd man out either. So sometimes what I have them do, or give suggestions to other teachers, is to give them a job that's behind the scenes, so they're still part of whatever's going on, but just not in the view of the camera.
That's a great suggestion. Andrew, I know when you were talking about, there's never the possibility that, a bystander would come into your classroom normally. Is it the chat too? I think when I look at that chat and the fact that, Justin's in there and anyone else who joins can send a message on the, and so do that if you like, those of you that have joined. Do join the live chat, but you do lose control in at a certain point too when it is live like that, and then people can chat and you have just like a Periscope, you don't have the ability to block that. So then you have to be prepared for the possibility that someone may say something that's not appropriate, that you then have to deal with the repercussions of that in classroom, depending on what that looks like. Is that kind of what you were talking about as well when you were talking about the?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a much less controlled and a much less stable environment. And when we have kids in our classes who either can't be out in the public, who can't have their face over the internet, or simply choose not to. We have to be aware of that stuff. I mean, there are lots of kids who, for legal reasons, their location can't be revealed. And it's amazing when you think about live streaming apps or any sort of live streaming that you do, how much contextual information is suddenly opened up just because it's happening in the classroom, Suddenly there's, you can see a little bit of the window and you can see there's leaves on the trees, so you know kind of what time of year it is. And you can tell what time of day it is by the quality of the light, and maybe there's a flag on the wall, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of contextual information, or even things you wouldn't even think about, such as a student's work is on the wall in the background, and now it's being broadcast across the internet for anybody to see. And has anybody asked them, that student, are they okay with that? Right. So I think it's just one of those things that we need to think through carefully. And also be aware, like I said, of the fact that it's instant and we can't take it back. There's very little control, and I'm not sure we've thought that through yet.
And so I think that piece is critical, right? Especially if you, and you know in your classroom, if there are students who have those circumstances, those extenuating circumstances where it might really be a matter of their own safety if any information is revealed about them. So that's a really, really good point. Thank you so much. Any other fears before we move into cheers and possible implementation in the classroom of this platform?
Well, I mean, I think the other thing that we have to be aware of is that what we're doing here is we're giving student work and we're putting it in the realm and making it the property of a corporation. All of this stuff now belongs to Blab. If you read the privacy policy, you read the terms, you go through it, all the stuff that we're doing right now belongs to them. It's for them to use, for them to distribute and do whatever we want. And it's one thing for me as an adult to go, well, you know what, this is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. I'm prepared to share that in order to have the facility to communicate and connect with people. It's a completely different thing for me to do that on the behalf of a student, where they don't have a lot of agency.
Right.
And where maybe I haven't taken the time to check properly over whether the parents are okay with that.
Right.
I mean, we're losing control of this is student created work. So I mean that's something I think we need to discuss and we need to talk about.
Agreed. I also do think that on the other hand of that is that that having that conversation around what's there and what's not there is important, but also showing kids that they can, learn and share learning online. So I think we have to balance that awareness of the privacy and what we're giving up, and balance the risk anyway, and balance that maybe with some of the positive experiences that they might have by connecting globally with others.
The thing I think we should consider then is what are the advantages of us doing it in this format?
Exactly.
Compared to something where we could achieve the same objectives, but keep it more restrained. If I do a mystery Skype, that's not open to the public.
No, unless you choose to record it. Or you're right. Yep, you're right. So why go public?
Right, or I can record a video and I can send it. There's all kinds of different ways that I can have the same facility without dealing with that sort of stuff. So that's, I think that's something we got to consider. And
absolutely.
And what do we do for the kids who choose not to do it? You know, those are really all things I think we need to consider.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. Is there anyone who has joined who would like to jump in and have their say before we move on and talk about what some of the advantages or the possibilities with this platform might be? So in order to do that, you just double click on where that blank square is, or the gray square is, and it'll prompt me to allow you to join in the conversation. I'm going to do that wait time that we talk about as teachers. You're struggling to see or hear. I'm at the cottage. Thank you for trying. It's hard sometimes with internet connection. You're enjoying a beautiful day there, though. Okay.
Oh, that was Catherine.
Thanks, Catherine. Okay, so why don't we move into some of the cheers or some of the possibilities that we see in terms of this. So if we have had, and I think, Andrew, the points you raised, and Fran as well, we've had sort of the consideration, we think, okay, this might be the tool, or this is the tool because we do want to live stream, because we want to have lots of people, lots of classes. Mystery Skype doesn't allow for that. I don't really want to go Periscope, or maybe I do want to go Periscope. I don't know what the difference is between the two. What I do know is that, and one of the cheers, so I'm going to start with what are the cool things. What I like about this is with the unlisted, so if I'm creating an unlisted Blab, people actually have to ask my permission to join. And so you can kind of control that environment in that way. So just say there are, 5 different classes. We want to have some sort of a debate online. I can limit who comes in and who comes out. having said that, I don't know, like that C. Viteri, it says Catherine. I don't know who they are. Like I have to kind of know who it is that I'm accepting or rejecting. But that was just what I was thinking right off the bat. What are you thinking from your global ed perspective, Fran, in terms of cheers for this platform?
Well, I was actually thinking kind of separately. I was kind of thinking of learning spaces, and with Skype or with Google Hangout, you have one mainframe, and then everybody else is small on the one part, and then the host just seems, like they're the one in control. And just physically, from when you look at the screen right now, there are 3 squares, and we're all evenly placed, and we can hear each other, and it's not bouncing back and forth. And to me, this is a much better format for having a conversation and engagement from 3 people. So just even like from comfort level purposes, and if we had a 4th here too, I think this is more like an actual roundtable discussion. So I feel like it's more intimate and conducive to conversation and engagement. So that was one thing I was thinking of.
Thank you.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. When I see it and when we use it, it's just very nicely set up for discussion, debate, questioning, all that kind of stuff. I could see it being a really great way to have students who are working on the same stuff in different places, different physical locations, to get together to discuss what they're doing, discuss their findings, share, question each other. It works really well that way. Another way I saw it is I thought, wouldn't it be a great way to have a debate over different things? You could have one person be the moderator. You have one person taking the pro side, one person taking the con side. The different classes in different locations are joining in through the message board. It'd be a great way to schedule a debate unit and really bring in a diversity of opinions from different places that you sometimes don't get in one physical location. If we're talking about should school be canceled on snow days, we may have a very different approach to that from Florida than we would in Ontario.
So great for a debate. I was thinking that as well. I was initially thinking of it as a tool for ELL learners as well, just the being able to jump in and out. But then as I thought about that and your original concern, I think would this necessarily be the right platform for them? They don't need to be live streamed. They might need something like a voice thread, which allows them to talk through, because the whole idea is the oral language piece, but maybe not necessarily for it to be broadcast. But that's really cool. I loved the fact that when Justin told me that it can be saved as a podcast or an audio, what I really like about that is the fact that if indeed I created an unlisted Blab and I was concerned about the video, it can be saved as an audio, and we could sort of go back and reflect on, as a class, for example, on what we'd heard and what we did if we were going to do some metacognitive work. And then the fact that it's an audio and not a video, I think is kind of a cool feature.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I'm often concerned about with things like Periscope or Meerkat is sort of the bigger picture question we have about what that says about how we feel about student work and student learning. The fact that it's very ephemeral and is gone and it's difficult to keep it is always a concern for me. And one of the things that I really like about Blab is that it's stored, so students can use it, they can look at it, and then they can go back and learn from it and read, well, what about this? What about that? What do you say? And when I work with video in the classroom, there's a lot of iteration. There's a lot of trying stuff, and oh no, I wasn't sitting up properly. My voice wasn't very good. I sound so silly, and I've got to get used to that. There's a lot of iteration that goes on with video in my classroom, and so the fact that it can be archived and saved and learned from is a really great thing.
Right, and even my background is as a Spanish teacher, and just communicating in another language, and so I see it as just a beautiful way to meet with people and you know, I really do feel like there is more of a connection, seeing that we're all right here and you can clearly see the faces. And like you said, I think the communication piece is so important, because later that's going to spark, like Jen said, the reflection or even the curiosity about the other people that are in this room right now. Mm-hmm. So it just, again, I'm going back to it seems more intimate.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question. I just gave you props, both of you. What did you see when I gave you props? Did it say, like, was it just a hand clap? Because I think I really like that.
Well, I like that it has but it's like your bubble, your face in your bubble.
Little floating bubble of your avatar.
And then do you see on your screen, because I see, oh, thanks, Catherine. Do you see on your screen the number of props that everyone else has, or do I just see that as the moderator?
Oh, I didn't know what that number was.
I can see that I only have 11, which is significantly less than either of you. Thank you for pointing that out. Very nice.
That was my concern, because
I don't want any pity props from you. Thank you, Jennifer. No pity props.
No, but that was certainly, I was thinking, I love the fact that you can give props, but then when we are dealing with students and one person has one prop and everybody, you know, someone else has 68, I think as a moderator, you need to be just mindful of that. And that, like, I don't know, it may be a conversation. I think whenever we go online with kids, we need to start to have conversations about etiquette, right? And with this particular platform, I would say, you know, there's an opportunity to give the other people props, and, you know, just be mindful of the fact that if someone doesn't have any, or we just don't want any bad feelings. That would be sort of the conversation that I might have before entering into this space with kids, based on what I just saw there, because I felt, when I saw your 11 props, I'm like, how did that happen, Andrew?
I'm just not keeping up. That's all.
I didn't honestly know. I was clapping on my own, thinking I was clapping for you. I'm not used to having them everywhere. You know, on Periscope, it's a heart. On Periscope, it's just a heart, and you just click on the little heart. I don't have options around the room.
No.
Well, it opens up, like, all those protocols open up the opportunity to talk about those things. I mean, kids who use digital environments all the time, you know, there's things like thumbs up or any of these good, bad things. And being in this environment opens up the opportunity to kind of go, hey, you know what? This is what this means. Let's talk about what you get a prop for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's someone calling in, Carlos, who would like to say something. Hi, Carlos. And I don't know who Carlos is, so I'm hoping this is going to be all good.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hi, Carlos.
Can you guys hear me?
Can. Do you have anything? Are you an educator?
Yeah, I'm in sales training.
Okay, so this is actually a conversation. Okay. So we were just talking about the uses for education. Did you have something to contribute to that conversation?
No, I just came in just to see what's going on.
Oh, well, thank you. So I'm just going to put you back in so we can continue the conversation. We appreciate you being here. I like that. No offense, Carlos, but I'm glad that you jumped in. I'm glad that as a moderator, if there is anything that I don't feel comfortable with within the environment, not that I didn't feel comfortable with you, Carlos, but certainly so all I did there, I don't know if any of you saw what was on my screen, but you're able to remove someone who's speaking, and you're able to also give people greater rights. So either a host right is able to accept other people. So if you had 3 teachers or an expert, you know, that with whom you're talking, then you can certainly give them host privileges in order to do that. But also as a moderator, you have the ability to move people in and out, which I think is also really important. Okay, so we were talking about.
Let me ask you a question about that, because you're in that moderator seat. Do you think that this works best with a teacher as the moderator and kids dropping in and out of the seats, or can you see situations where kids would be the moderators, or would it depend?
I think it would depend. Primarily, from my perspective, it has to depend on age, right? Because you need to have. That's my dog.
That was my dog earlier.
Yeah, but you need a Twitter or a Facebook account for this, and the minimum age requirement for that is 13. So I can see, you know, in a grade 7 or 8 class, can I see students being moderators? Absolutely. I think it would be really cool for kids to connect with experts in this kind of forum in order to then be able to video or audio record it to then move forward and to invite others. That's me. Do you have anything to add to that? But it would.
Well, I have an opinion. I have an opinion that I would rather our students make mistakes or learn while we're here guiding them.
Exactly.
So as hard as it is where we want to protect them, in a way, we'd rather them make the mistakes or, you know, if it happens to be a mistake, or be able to deal with those situations while we can still guide them. Absolutely. Instead of, you know, them going off to university and never having experienced life on the internet. And then all of a sudden it's just kapoof. So that's always been my philosophy, as much as we can.
It feels like one of those gradual release of responsibility pieces, right? Where you have the teacher directing it, and we just lost someone.
Oh,
I think we just lost our moderator.
That's not good.
No, but yeah, it feels like one of those things where, you know, you'd have kids participating in Blabs, and then generally as they develop skills and become more comfortable with it, they then some of them would be able to take over and start moderating.
Yes. And I would say, you know, start small and do it with.
Oh my gosh. I just kicked myself out of the Blab. Thankfully, I am back, and the recording is still happening. So yay, there's another cheer. My goodness. Yes. Okay.
So easy to get back in.
And Justin just put, if the person has no video, make sure to say bye. And that's another important thing for students, right? That we start to explore with them. That you're right, when they go on and use this on their own, that they'll be able to do that. Andrew, that gradual release of responsibility is a paper I'm writing, actually. So the fact that you even used that term, but absolutely. Is it Kevin Honeycutt who says that kids are playing, it's like kids are playing on at recess with no adult supervision. So this is sort of risk and yet sort of the benefits to me so far seem to outweigh the risks a little bit. Okay.
Right. What I was about to say, though, was, you know, if you can get with a teacher for the first couple times where the teacher is right behind them and really, you know, on top of them. And once we feel like they're comfortable, then again, you know, taking a step backward.
I could see doing analog blabs first, right? Where you do this whole thing, you say, okay, your role is going to be the moderator, and you sit in class and work it through.
Great idea.
And talk about what the protocols are and how we're going to do this before you ever get online. Similar, I mean, I do the same kind of thing with social media where I have kids handwrite tweets, post them up, and then talk about, well, you know, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? How can we make it better?
It's a great idea.
Well, with you all were talking about using it as a debate, you know, and you mentioned voice thread. That's what we used to do when we did debates before, where it was asynchronous. So one day someone would put in their items on the debate, like their rebuttal, and then the other ones, they promised to listen to it the next day and within 3 minutes come up with their rebuttal. So you could practice that way first, you know, and then come over to, you know, a tool like this one to take it to the next step and make it in real time as the students show that they can be responsible.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great idea as well. So I'm just, when I was researching in order to do this, I came across Steve Anderson's blog, and he and Shaylin Farnsworth, I think her name is, they created a post. I will put it in, drop the link in here. But they also had a couple of ideas, and I just wanted to share them with you and get your input. So one of them was to do and we've already talked about interviewing experts and primary sources. They said a live demonstration of a science experiment, which I think is kind of neat. If we had like a peer buddying, like a grade 7 class with, you know, a grade 12 class, you know, what would that look like? Because the grade 7 class might not have the opportunity to look at that. I don't know. They also have a school community broadcast, practicing reading skills, which I think you talked about already, Fran, with the Spanish. Cross-curricular projects or group work when the groups are not necessarily within the classroom. And field trip recaps. So using, after field trips, speakers and other academic experiences can follow up with a video response. So I don't know what we think about that. I thought some of those were interesting too. I'll throw the link in here because I've never thrown a link in here before. I want to see how that works. So let me try it.
Well, that makes sense though. Like if something's going on during school hours that you're, you know, something happens and then the kids at home, you know, if they're in groups of 4, like they said, like a field trip recap, you know, they had a, you know, time to go home and tell their parents about it and think about it. And then they could come on here and do a recording of, you know, their reflection. So
it just comes up right in that window.
It does. And it did give me a little warning saying that that actually won't show up in the recording. And they're working on that because that's in beta. So Catherine, I don't know if you, if your internet is any stronger and whether or not you want to jump in with your idea here. I know you were saying you were considering Blab for extra help with senior math students. So I guess my question there would be, would that be something that you might do in a Google Hangout or, you know, in this kind of environment? Because I keep thinking, because I use Google Hangout quite a bit, and I wonder about that. And I know Google Hangout has a limit of only 10 kids that could be there, but then you can use a chat window as well. And so Catherine is going to jump in. Hi there. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, this is my first time trying this.
Like, you joined the club. That's great.
I'm thinking about for 1-hour sessions on Sunday.
I'm sorry, you cut out there for a second.
Oh, sorry. My internet might not be great. I'm debating it for 1-hour sessions on Sunday with my students. And I've never used Google Hangout. I've heard your question, but I've never used that.
Okay. And so do you, considering what we've talked about already, do you feel comfortable that your students would be able to sort of ask questions in this environment, or would you consider using the unlisted part of it? And is the idea that you really like the recording? Like, what is it that you're thinking around that?
I like the personal that was said earlier when you can see everyone. I think the students would be comfortable. I'm from a small school and you know so many of the students. I think with the control to release people that popped in, like what happened. And I don't think that many people would, if that, you know, if it happened frequently, then you can see how that would become too disruptive.
Okay, true. Awesome. And then is there anything else that you're looking at this app thinking, wow, you know, this is another cheer? I know Justin just put in that it's easy to podcast, which, yeah, absolutely.
Nick also commented to me that he just thought it was great for the collaboration piece, you know, just being able to see each other and really work together.
It's so nice that people can come and go as they wish too. You don't have to stay the whole time.
And I think, sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Because you're a bit more experienced with Google Hangouts than I am. Why would you use this over Google Hangouts or vice versa? What are the pluses and minuses?
So from what I can see, Google Hangouts has a limit in terms of how many people could actually be on the screen with you at the same time, meaning they could talk. So whereas here, and I've always been struggling with how could I get, if I had 25 people and everyone wanted to contribute something at some point, how could I do that? Because as soon as you create a Google Hangout, you have that limitation. Whereas here, what I really like about it, so even me, I could jump out jump out of my seat and let someone else in. And I could have 100 people here. They're not all going to be talking at the same time. But what I really like about that is it also sets up protocols for kids, like, right? So we talked about that etiquette piece that you might try analog first, but here it's like, so you have to wait and ask for, wait for someone's turn. And then, when is it appropriate to jump in and jump out? And if you're not talking anymore, does it make sense to sit back so someone else can contribute? Like I really like that. I like the fact that, as you said, Catherine, people could jump in and jump out. And I think that really lowers the risk. I'm a kid who maybe has something to contribute in the fear section or the cheer section, but I don't necessarily want my face on there the whole time because I'm an adolescent and I have, I just broke out this morning. Like, do you know what I mean? So I'm only going to jump in when I'm really passionate about what it is that there is to say.
Can you record a Google Hangout like you can here?
You can record a Google Hangout. If it's a Google Hangout on air, if it's just a Google Hangout, there is no recording. Yeah. And the limits there are, so a Google Hangout, the limits are 15. And then a Google Hangout on air, the limit is 10 people on air. The problem there is the more people you have on air, the less the quality diminishes.
So Catherine, for your study group, you could have a protocol where you say every kid has to come and bring one question. And then they get to hear other questions discussed, they get to talk about them, but the expectation is come with one question that you want to discuss, one thing you want to talk about, and then you take your turn and then you drop out. Once your question's answered, you could go, or you can stick around and listen to other people's questions.
Exactly. I think it would work perfect. And I've had so many students, I've been texting, tutoring, like taking pictures.
Oh, wow.
It takes forever. I think that my driven students would do this.
One thing, and I don't know if Justin can help us out with this. Is there any way to share the screen? Share one person's screen? So
maybe I'll jump out so Justin can jump in. Justin,
I can jump out. I'll keep reading. I'll jump out, then someone else can.
Okay. Thanks, Catherine. Thanks for joining us. Awesome.
Thank you.
I hate that it says kick because now it feels like I've kicked you out, Catherine. I'm sorry.
Over here it says bumped.
Oh, good. Okay, not kicked out. So, Justin, do you want to jump in and answer that question live, or are you good with that, or do you want to just keep chatting? I know Justin's got kids, and I don't know what's going on at home right now. So,
while we're waiting, just one of the things we're talking about in terms of accessibility for other people. So, I mean, one of the things that I think would be great about this is the fact that there's mobile app. So kids get that on their phone, but there's no Android app, which is huge for kids who can't afford iPhones. So, I mean, that's an unknown there. It would be great to think that a kid up in their room could just flip on their phone and join in on a Blab from home to get homework, to get homework help, whatever it is. Imagine a bunch of kids doing a study group like this through Blab. That could work really, really well.
Well, on the same token, if they're at home, hopefully they have access to a computer, which might be even easier because it's a big screen, but the phone is really convenient in case they, were on a train or a subway or walking or something, that they could just use it on their phone. But I would think that if they were at home, they could use, a big computer.
Maybe, but
that's what I'm doing today.
Yeah, for a lot of kids, it's all about the mobile apps, and if it's not mobile, it's not even there. Another thing in terms of I can't remember what it is, but the questions, whatever the ears thing that we're talking about is. Nicholas just asked about can you turn off the cheers, and I think that's sort of a bigger issue in terms of students have a variety of needs, and it's not super customizable. It would be nice for it to be customizable in some way. If teachers could look at it and go, well, you know what, I like this, but not that, so I want to turn that feature off or turn that feature up or whatever it is. It'd be nice to see a bit more customization available.
I think that's a great point, Andrew. And I do know that if you go to Blab, they are looking at, it's still considered beta because I think they're continuing to work on it. I think it's one of those apps where they put it out there but didn't really recognize, like Voxer, right? People are using Voxer in education now, and Voxer, Tammy Neal, I think, was talking to them, and they really didn't anticipate that education would have picked it up so much. So there is a link, and I'm going to blog about this and put the link in, but there is a link to add those kinds of comments to make it better. And I think the Android, I mean, that's certainly something I will include in my suggestions, because that's a really good point, that some of the Android phones are far less expensive, and we don't want to block access for kids if we're going to choose something like this, for sure. Yeah.
In my experience too, even, just back with Apple Care, so many companies are so receptive to other people's opinions, and you just, and I think the students know that too, or we can stress it with them also, making things customizable, or making suggestions. Suggestions are quite welcome, or let people know what works and what doesn't work. I think, the way these corporations are working is they want the feedback, and they want to be able to, fix the problem if it's a problem.
For sure.
So I like that.
Okay, so it's 7:46, mindful of the time. I thought we were going to do half an hour, but it's okay. We're gunning. It's awesome. Any last points, and then I guess unclears? I guess we kind of already touched on the unclears, right? So can we, add some of these customizable features? And looks like there is the opportunity to do that. Nicholas was saying, I was just thinking about it becoming a popularity contest with the clapping. Yeah, we did talk about that earlier, and the fact that the moderator needs to kind of be mindful of the clapping, and that if you you have a conversation with the kids before you engage in this, just to tell them that there is the clapping, and what would be the best thing to do, do you think, so everybody feels like they're valued and respected. That's kind of what we talked about there, if that makes sense, Nicholas.
I think a massive unclear is just how we negotiate the fact that you need a Facebook or Twitter account.
Yep.
When a lot of us are working with students that either don't have them or can't have them, and how do we do that and still maintain some student privacy? We can certainly create class Twitter accounts, but we're going to create class Twitter accounts for every kid. I almost feel like if we want this to work and be really accessible for education, we need almost an education version of it. Right. Kind of like Kid Blog has done to blogging. We need a version of it where kids can go in under an anonymous name and can access it, and it protects their privacy. Some sort of a different version of it.
Well, that's interesting that you say that. I think, like, when I look at my daughter, who's 16, and all of her friends, they already have a Twitter account. It's almost a non-issue. So I wonder the extent to which we just need to know that, right? Like, how many of our kids do have it? How many of them feel comfortable with it? And do they feel comfortable using, because I know sometimes my daughter's like, well, I don't necessarily want to use my personal Twitter account for something like this. I mean, being mindful of that too. But I don't know. I guess I don't know that I completely agree with that, because I think that in this particular case, because we're setting up so many important protocols for them to use digital media, that having a positive, like using Blab for the classroom to share their learning and experience, is actually a very positive thing. So while I agree with you that we need to know that, I think that as soon as we start to only say education, 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 then kids, in my opinion, they lose that transferability. They go, okay, well, this is for school, but then I can act like this when I'm on my own social media. And I think sometimes when we use a platform and show them that you can actually not just hang out with your friends on Twitter or Blab, but you could actually use this for learning, I think they come to an awareness that there are multi-purposes and flexibility when you're using this tool. I know when I was doing research, Blab is huge for business. So having kids, and you're right, like if they had an educational version of Blab, the transference from using it in education to using it to business would probably be very, very similar. But at the same time, it would be kind of neat to have the kids explore some Blabs and get insight to an engineer who's now doing a Blab, which I think you lose when you have when you close it to education. I don't know if that makes sense.
I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking more in terms of. I was thinking more in terms of that. There's a whole bunch of kids who just can't have Facebook or Twitter accounts because they're just not old enough. So as an elementary teacher, that's a huge barrier to using Blab. And there are some. I mean, I have friends who are involved in teacher education, and kids who are in university going through teachers college, and they ask them to use their Twitter account, and they say, no, that's for me, that's private, that's personal. For professional things, I'm going to create a separate account.
Right.
So I mean, you can certainly have a discussion with it and maybe not agree with it, but there are going to be kids who are going to say, yeah, I don't want to use that. And if you're going to make it for part of the course, if you're going to make it part of your evaluation, part of your learning, you have to provide an avenue for them to be able to use it without them having to reveal who they are.
That's true. Thank you.
I mean, going back to that same vein, though, when I work with classrooms, I've always just used my account. I don't use the kids' account. And it's, we put it up on the main screen. And whether it's my Twitter, my Skype, my Google Hangout, which actually I'll have an account that is more, not my personal one, but more my work one. And then that's where everything is under. And then we all share that one. So it's definitely under my umbrella.
And so,
but I'm usually there with them, and this is usually when I'm with little ones.
Yeah. So the unclears really are that age piece, and then how do we negotiate the personal and the professional, and the school and the. Okay. Any last thoughts, friends, before we say goodbye? And I pause the recording, and we leave this really interesting environment.
I think we have some takeaways and some things to think about.
Yeah, I've been impressed by how well the platforms worked. I mean, there's been very few crashes. There's a little bit of glitchiness, but not a lot, which is pretty impressive. I'm doing this over Wi-Fi. I was worried about bandwidth. It's been fine. It seems like a pretty solid platform.
All right. Well, maybe we can collaborate on a blog together about this. But I want to just thank you, Fran, and Andrew for joining me tonight to explore Blab in the classroom. I loved hearing your perspectives as always, and you've definitely given me lots of food for thought. And I'm really if you just joined us. Sorry, Stacy. I'll give you the recording. Don't worry, because we've had a great conversation here, and I think it does have a lot of potential. And I'm just grateful that you were playing in this space with me, so I can learn a little bit more about it. So thank you so much, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting, and thanks for the invite.
Take care.
Bye. Okay, now it's working.
So before we leave, I just learned that I could actually pause the recording and then go back. And I think that's critical compared to Google Hangouts, because if things are getting out of hand or kids need some help and kids are using this platform and I'm the teacher there, I'm there to support them. So I could say, hey guys, let's just pause for a second. Let's regroup what's happening here. And then, especially if it's unlisted, and then go back. I didn't know you could do that. So anyway. There we go. So good night. I'll try to figure out how to hang up. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.